If we even think about the time that we're in, crime should be at record lows. If you think about the technology that exists in order to hold somebody responsible for their crimes, the proliferation of traffic cams, of halo cams, of ring cameras, of Arlo cameras, of license plate readers, we should be enjoying historic low crime rates, not only in our city, not only in our state, but across the entire country. But unfortunately, we're allowing emotional decisions to drive our actions. And it's how do we reduce the prison population, not how do we keep our community safe.
I've been waiting for this one for a long time. Former police chief of Denver, Pazen. Now, I didn't know that you were actually born in Denver and you did all your time as a cop in Denver.
Correct.
You don't get out much. Because usually cops do service, I've been here for a while, and then I went to this city for a while, and I went over here for a while, but you did your entire career in Denver.
You're right. I'm born and raised in this city. I've been very fortunate. I felt that this city has given me a lot, and I wanted to give back. So when I returned from the Marine Corps, I applied for 2 jobs, Denver Police Department, Denver Fire Department. And fortunately, I was hired by the Denver Police Department.
Too bad. You ended up with a job. All right. I want to just jump right into this. And pardon me, this is me whining and bitching. So we're here in the middle of Denver. The Independence Institute is where we filmed this. And this is a beautiful place, all right? This is a beautiful city. Our building is gorgeous. And in the last 3 years, the place has turned into I don't want to say a hellscape, but it has turned to crap. All right, so in this building, we have been broken into. Around this building, we have had homeless encampments we've had to chase away. We've had vagabonds and transients and bums, and we've had to clean up needles. We've had to clean up bottles. We've had to clean up condoms. It's mostly just from the employees, but also from everybody else. And we've had to clean up vomit and human feces. My staff has just told me that we have to now get a larger trash service because we're throwing away so much stuff from the homeless that are encamping around here. We now have to put up more security systems. We've had mice infestations around the building because they leave their food around. We've called the cops over and over, and this scares me. In order to get the cops here, I called 911 because I got tired of the other line. And after 2.5 minutes on hold, it got cut off. Called again. After 3 minutes, it got through. They said, we'll send somebody over. And sure enough, somebody got sent over a little while later. And then a few hours later, another guy came because 2 people called. It was like 4 hours, 5 hours later. And these 2 guys looked so beat, so haggard. And they're like, I'm so sorry. We finally could get here, but there was only a handful of cops in all of District 6. And these guys look beat. And I asked him, so what's going on? And he said, oh, we got called to this and we got called to that. And sorry, I know this is a big problem for you, but it's we just can't go anywhere. And if anything really happens, we've got to go to the bank robbery or this. And I asked him more, and he said, it's really tough. The cop told me he arrested a guy the other day for stealing 5 cars. And then he arrested him later that afternoon for stealing another car. How is that possible that you are arrested and within 2 hours you're out on the streets getting arrested again? Explain that to me.
Well, first, what you're experiencing is real. What you're experiencing is not unlike what many of the residents and business owners across all of Denver's 78 neighborhoods are seeing on a regular basis. This is unacceptable. It's frustrating. It's not only frustrating for you, it's frustrating for homeowners that have to deal with this in their neighborhoods. it's also frustrating for the officers because auto theft, we should not be arresting the same individual for felony level crimes over and over and over again, only to see them released immediately to go on to commit more crimes. And the frustration is real easy to say, hey, I called 911, it took this long. I talked to the officers, here's what they're telling me. And oftentimes we're directing this anger and frustration at the women and men that have dedicated their lives to keeping us safe, when in many ways they have limited options to address these issues. For example, last year, the Denver Police Department arrested more people for auto theft than any year in our history, yet the problem persists. So at some point, we have to hold the individuals who are actually committing the crimes accountable for their actions, and when that happens, crime will go down.
So just help me understand this. Let's take one at a time. It's a good thing I wasn't bleeding out when some injury, because somebody's going to be calling 911 and being put on hold and die because there's not a human being to answer. Why is it that there's not a person there? How overcrowded? What's the problem at 911 dispatch that you can't get a human being?
Well, 911 dispatch is maintained by the safety department. Let me just make sure that we have that distinction.
And that's
clear.
not the police
and it's
department?
not the police department. As the former police chief, I did not have agency over Denver 911 system. They are dealing with staffing challenges, not unlike many other aspects of public safety. And part of it is when the demand is too high and the supply is low, the supply of call takers and dispatchers and the 911 calls have increased, then it creates longer hold times for 911 calls, and something that's completely unacceptable, and that is the longer wait times for a police officer to respond, particularly the high priority calls for service. We were on pace to get under 10 minutes prior to many of the challenges that we saw 3 years ago. I'd love to point out the successes that we saw in 2019, and then the world turned upside down in 2020, and that really changed the entire dynamic. But response times were at record lows. A lot was made about this 12-minute response time prior to. We were pushing the under 10-minute response time, and now that is ballooned to over 15-minute response times, which is completely unacceptable for high priority calls where somebody is facing life-threatening emergencies.
And talk to me about even the story. Everyone knows somebody, if not themselves, that have had their car stolen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just, Colorado's #1 in the country for car theft. Denver, Aurora is right up the top. Why? And how is it? I'm looking at these guys, and these are a couple older cops, and you could just tell, they're counting their days. I mean, they are counting their days until they can be out of here. And you could see it in their eyes of, why am I arresting this guy so I can see him 2 hours later and arrest him again for the same crime? So why is it that same guy is out again? Is it a change in law? Is it the DA's office? Is it that cops are messing up on the arrests and therefore he's being tossed out? Is it that the jail is full and therefore they can't hold him? What is the reason that if the guy stealing the car is in a jail cell, that helps the car theft go down?
100%. So prior to my retirement, I would attend community meetings on a regular basis, and I would ask that question: who in this room has had their car stolen? And you would see arms going up and down throughout the entire room. Most of the meetings, I would see this, where an individual would say, I've had my car stolen twice. And again, when we talk about this issue, a vehicle is more than just a piece of property that's taken from somebody's yard. This is a single mom's way to get the kids to school. This is
It's your livelihood.
the breadwinner being able to get to work. It is your livelihood. It is an extension of who we are and how we're able to feed our families. So car theft is a big deal. Now, it's also something that contributes to additional crimes. People will often use stolen cars in the conveyance of burglaries, robberies, shootings, and additional crimes that have really plagued the entire state of Colorado. So when you say what's driving this, there are some changes to state law that have significantly contributed to the increase in auto theft. There are some prosecutors that take this crime seriously and others that don't take this seriously. There are judges that don't think this is that big of a deal because it's a property crime. It's just
not a violent crime.
It's not a violent crime. It's just a property crime. As far as cases being dismissed because of officers not doing the paperwork, this is pretty streamlined. These are computer reports, drop-down boxes. The PC, probable cause statement on an auto theft is pretty simple. It's not being thrown out as a result
Has
of
there been
officers.
a change in law?
There has been a change in law.
What is that?
Well, the first dates back to 2014. 141263 was a law where auto theft used to be a Class 4 felony. Now, this is important because our criminal justice system typically is based on plea. We're a plea-based system. 97% of all cases that are filed typically get pled down. So if Paul walks into court facing a Class 4 felony, I'm likely to plead that down to a Class 6 felony. Still a penalty, and there will be some level of accountability. 2014, we changed this, and no longer the 4s, it's based on value. So if somebody has an expensive car, that car would be, and that car is stolen, that person would be charged with a Class 5 felony. And if somebody steals an inexpensive car, the type of car a single mom,
Right.
a struggling family drives, that person's charged with a Class 6 felony. Now, we're a plea-based system.
Just to make sure I'm following you, I'm assuming a Class 4 felony is a bigger deal. You don't want that. You
Correct.
want a Class 5 if you're the bad guy, and you want a Class 6 instead of a Class 5 if you're the bad guy. So in this whole world of systematic racism and all the other stuff we're hearing about, really what we're doing is making it a lesser crime to victimize poor people. Is that what I'm understanding? That a poor person's mode of transportation, if I steal your car because you're poor, I'm at less risk? That is sick.
That's exactly what we have done in the state of Colorado. And this is when we talk about these changes that have happened recently, that we're trying to focus on individuals in marginalized community, we're actually making it worse. And that is in higher level crimes as well. If you look at the murders that have taken place in our city, 85% of those murders are persons of color, the murder victims, persons of color. So this is an issue that absolutely has to get fixed, and instead of fixing it, we've compounded the issue.
Because I've heard, one of the laws that shows systematic racism is that cocaine is penalized at a much lower level than crack cocaine. So people of color, marginalized people, are convicted of this crime because it's much cheaper to get crack than cocaine. So your Aspenite who's snorting cocaine gets a lesser sentence, and this person gets a worse sentence. But here we got something where it's the same sort of thing, where this guy, the incentive is to victimize poor people and not victimize rich people.
You're exactly right. That's
All right.
what has occurred, and we have exacerbated that situation.
Yes. All right.
So following up, there's legislation in 2019, 19143, followed by legislation in 2020, 2143, that pushed a lot of low-level property crime offenders out of jail. And Colorado has one of the worst recidivism rates anywhere in the country, fourth worst recidivism rate.
Now, these were passed in 1919.
2019.
2019. This is what happens when you get older. You get your centuries mixed up. So 2019, 2020.
And
so
then
pretty recent.
Then we did it again in 2021. So in 2021, we passed 271, misdemeanor reform. And in misdemeanor reform, that same class 6 felony has now been pushed down to a misdemeanor 1, which a poor person's car doesn't even count as a felony arrest anymore, or a felony charge. We have pushed that to the misdemeanor category. And again, we are a plea-based system. 97% of all cases are pled.
Wasn't a lot of this done under the guise of saying that our jails were racist, that we had too many people of color in our jails, in our prisons, and so what we're going to do is sentencing reform, and the sentencing reform was going to say, hey, these non-violent crimes, we're going to punish differently. We're going to keep them out of jails, and now we're living with the consequences.
You're exactly right. We have to address the criminal behavior. If we want crime to go down, we have to address the criminal behavior. And we have overcorrected. The United States represents 4 or 5% of the world's population, yet 25% of the incarceration rate. And many of these laws only focused on the 25%. Let's push folks out of jail. Let's make it so that they don't go to prison in the first place. Yet we did nothing to address the criminal behavior. And now we are seeing the results of this. So in Colorado in particular, right, what is washing out this story, what is making this very difficult to address at the state level is we hear crime is up across the country. And certainly Philadelphia, Chicago, LA, New York, you see some very horrific crime incidences that take place in these particular cities. But what everybody in the state of Colorado should know is Colorado used to be a relatively safe state. It used to be a remarkably safe state. We were well below the national averages in violent crime.
Was a safe city.
It's number 7 in the country. We were a remarkably safe city just a couple of years ago.
Let me put you on this one. The homeless issue it's ridiculous here, and it's not like it's awful everywhere. Just down the road in Colorado Springs, while they also have homeless, it is not this epidemic as we have here. They have beds and they have a camping ban, and they can take people and bring them to the homeless shelter and say, either you stay here or we will put you in jail. And so they get help, and the streets are relatively clean, 1,000,000 times cleaner and safer than here. So as police chief, these people, I can't walk to a restaurant. I've got women on my staff who don't want to come to work because it is dangerous here. There are people who are mentally insane and dangerous, running around screaming at themselves, walking by our offices. You have to literally step over unconscious people on the sidewalk. Why don't your cops pick them up and arrest them and get them off the streets?
So, very valid point. And as I drove here today, as I traveled along Lincoln, as I turned on 16th, as I was on Santa Fe, I saw the exact same thing that you saw. And yet again, as somebody born and raised in this city, as somebody who sees Denver as just this beautiful town that is missing out on what we could be, what we should be, where we were just a couple of years ago, I'm heartbroken of what I see. I'm frustrated with what I see. And instead of looking for real solutions, the tough solutions, we are busy trying to emulate what we see in Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, instead of Miami, Tampa, Fresno, Dallas. There are cities that are doing well in this space. There are cities that are addressing these issues, looking for the betterment of all of their residents, not just a handful here or there, not being selective of, well, we're going to help this population and exclude these other populations. Really, we as a city, it's the common good. We have to look out for everybody, those opportunities, those job opportunities that drive our businesses, the lifeblood of what a city is all about in the first place.
The unemployment rate here is, what, 3.5%. There are jobs galore.
Yes. 2 jobs for every person that's looking, and 3.5% is good. Do you know what Miami's job unemployment rate is?
What?
1.4%. Why are we not trying to emulate very successful approaches that are addressing these issues? And the same thing, the first argument is going to be, well, we have a homeless problem because housing costs have skyrocketed. Are you going to tell me that the cost of an apartment in Denver is more than a cost of an apartment in Miami? Yeah. I mean, let's be real on these issues. And the reality is you get what you tolerate. And we have tolerated quite a bit. I don't believe that we've figured out.
What's frustrating, and you've heard these complaints so many times, but why is it that as business owner, or we run our organization in Denver, now we're the ones that have to pay to clean it up.
Yes.
We're the ones that have to pay for the landscaping to try to make it less hospitable. We have to pay for the new trash service. We have to pay for the new security services. We have to pay for all this stuff while we're also paying for the taxes that are going for all these services that make it more tempting to stay outside and camp outside. It is so maddening, and it's only going to end poorly.
Yep.
Those of us old enough remember New York before it got cleaned up, and it was ugly. And I wonder, let me ask you, can Denver be saved? And when I say that, there are a lot of people who look at Denver and go, this is going in a bad direction, and it's going to have to hit bottom before it pulls itself out. When people start going, I don't want to go downtown tonight. No, we'll stay in Lakewood. I don't want to go to the show down there. We'll just stay out here. I don't want to, and now with telecommuting, I don't have to.
Right. Very concerning, and this is, I believe, many of these same sentiments. I do not believe that we have the political will to make the tough decisions to do what's necessary for the common good, for the people of Denver and for the people of the state of Colorado, because we are trending in the wrong direction in many of these issues. And once you do fall off that cliff or get on that slippery slope, you have to pay twice as much, 3 times as much to rebound. Think of New Orleans, Washington, D.C., Detroit, cities that have had some significant challenges with regards to crime that then impacted their economy. They have to dig out and put forth monumental efforts to get to where we are now, that if we realize that that at some point we are going to kill the goose that lays the golden eggs.
All right, let's talk about political will. Why did you retire? You're saying we didn't get these things done. People will point the finger at Paul Pazen. Well, obviously, it's your fault. Did you retire because you weren't up for the task? Did you not get the support you needed from the city? What happened there? I get a sense talking to you that you felt like they didn't have your back. So give me the real story.
Well, first and foremost, October 15th is a date that my family and I had circled for a long time. This job is very taxing, 28 years in law enforcement, all in the Denver Police Department is a lot. It's a lot of sacrifice that I gave to this city that my family suffered as a result. And then you add the 5 years in the Marine Corps, 33 years of sacrifice for others. While I'm not
you
spending.
You get a pension, you get a nice job.
I do, yeah.
All right. I wish I had the pension. Sorry, anybody with a government pension, I'm having a hard time feeling sorry for. The older I get.
Pensions certainly are great.
Come on.
You don't
spill the dirt.
I believe that I pushed as far as I could push, that I moved the needle as far as I could move the needle.
What is it you would want the city to have done to solve these problems? In other words, now that you're out, what was the frustration? If you could have shaken the mayor or the council and say, or the legislature and said, we needed to do this. What was this that they didn't do?
Well, let me be very clear. I believe Mayor Hancock is a great person, and he was very supportive. There are plenty of mayors in the last couple of years that got on board the defund the police movement. Los Angeles, 150 million. New York City, 1 billion. Portland, 15 million.
Those were the cuts?
Seattle, those were the cuts,
Right.
and their mayors didn't stand up. So Mayor Hancock did support the Denver Police Department and
Yet here
said,
we are.
Yet here we are. Okay, so what I would say is we are real good at moving problems around. When we talk about these challenges that we see on 16th Street or 16th Avenue, on Lincoln Street, we see these issues. We address them, and all we do is move the problem around. Civic Center Park was an issue. That gets pushed into Golden Triangle. That gets pushed onto the 16th Street Mall. That gets pushed into Union Station. Then back onto East Colfax. We need to address these issues holistically.
What didn't the city give you that you needed?
I don't make it a habit to throw folks under the bus, but I do believe we need folks with strong political will that are willing to do what is right and what is necessary, not what is popular. And oftentimes,
what is right and what is necessary?
It's real easy. We have to hold people accountable for their actions. If we want to reduce crime, then you hold an individual accountable for their criminal behavior. And when you have things like outreach court that just washes away arrests.
What is outreach court?
So if we talk about many of the efforts, let's talk about Denver's Union Station, for example. Right, it was a little less than a year ago where people were outraged. They were upset with what this transit hub had become. Right. RTD has their own police force. They have their own security team. They were supposed to address their own challenges over there. It didn't happen, and they asked.
Because they're a transit agency. Their job is to run buses, and this is what happens when government gets into empire building and they want to become a city. No, run buses. Don't arrest people.
So it's well documented. Denver Union Station, open drug use. It became a day shelter, for lack of a better term. And the folks that wanted to use buses and light rail and transit out to DIA were forced to deal with issues you should never have to see. And they asked the Denver Police Department to come in and get this cleaned up. We did. 1,200 citations and arrests in that location to help eradicate the open use of fentanyl and other drugs. Very proud of the women and men for stepping up and taking care of this issue. Unfortunately, we then don't hold people accountable for those offenses. There is something that's called outreach court that actually goes to the same location where these offenses take place, and accountability is not part of the conversation.
When you say outreach court, did you mean like this is actually
a
a court?
magistrate? Yes.
So instead of sending them to court and sending them to jail, outreach court is like a different court?
Correct. It's run by a magistrate. They look for individuals that have pending cases, and accountability is not part of the equation in the adjudication process.
Is this one of these things where, let me put it in language that I can understand, because you're probably in a whole different vernacular. So in other words, a guy's in trouble, and they look at the guy and go, you need help, so we're going to send you to this program. Instead of me going, you're breaking the law, I'm going to send you to jail so you stop breaking the law. You might still have this problem, but at least you won't be stealing cars and stealing other things, because you'll be out of society. therefore society will be safer. Is
Okay.
that the basic difference?
Oh, I wish it were. I wish it were. We can put you in this program and get you the help, because that's something that we used to do in the state of Colorado, particularly around drugs. So it was called the wobbler. You can have this felony charge, or you can go to a program. And I'm in full support of that, right? You're getting somebody the help that they need and getting them off the streets.
Carrot and the stick.
Carrot and the stick. No. It would be nice if
Go to
that
jail
were
or
the case.
get clean?
Well, that's not what's taken place. It's, oh, you had this case? Okay, well, don't do that again. We'll see you later. And that case it no longer exists.
So
There isn't the stick, nor is there the carrot. And until that is addressed, we're going to continue to see these types of challenges.
So it sounds like we need new legislators, and instead it sounds like we just signed up to a whole bunch of the same legislators that just passed all this stuff, and we have the same governor who signed all these things in the last 4 years. We've renewed his lease for another 4 years. So that's tough. It sounds like we need a new set of DAs around here and prosecutors who will do this, and we need a new set of judges who will actually put people behind bars.
There's an overcorrection that took place in the criminal justice system, all based on trying to reduce the 25% of the world's population. And it was done in a way that excludes public safety. It's let's get everybody out of prison and not paying attention to the drivers of crime, criminal behavior, holding people accountable for their crimes. The case that you cited, an individual arrested for 5 auto thefts should not be immediately released from jail on a PR bond, a $1 bond, a $2 bond, and out creating harm in our community. Repeat and violent offenders need to be held accountable for their actions. And if we even think about the time that we're in, crime should be at record lows. If you think about the technology that exists in order to hold somebody responsible for their crimes, the proliferation of traffic cams, of halo cams, of ring cameras, of Arlo cameras, of license plate readers, we should be enjoying historic low crime rates, not only in our city, not only in our state, but across the entire country. But unfortunately, we're allowing emotional decisions to drive our actions. And it's how do we reduce the prison population, not how do we keep our community safe. Can we do both? 100%. But you have to have that courage to say, wait a minute.
How do you do both?
Well, we can point to places that have done this, and
Chop off people's hands. And then you set them free.
whoa! I'm not ready to chop.
I am ready to chop off hands. I'm pretty angry about this.
There's a
stuff.
lot of people that are very angry and that are ready to chop off people's hands. We don't need to do that.
One hand? Hand and a
Not
foot?
even a finger. No,
All right.
let's hold
All
people
right, Mr.
accountable.
Soft on crime. Then what are you gonna do? No, I know what you're talking about. And for a lot of time, it was like there are other programs. There's home arrest. There's this. There's that. If we're not sending people to jail to stop crime, and I do believe that we've been talking about is to stop crime. It's not to keep people out of jail. It's to stop crime. And the number one thing when we arrest someone is to keep them from committing crime, to make our streets safe.
Right.
Give me the quick example.
Example. Repeat and violent offenders. I think most of us can agree that individuals that are continuing to commit crimes, they need to be incarcerated and rehabilitated. That way they're not harming our greater society. Then the other dynamic is preventing that crime from occurring in the first place. And we did it here in Denver. When I said that Denver used to be a remarkably safe city, in 2019 we had 1,620 officers. We deployed those officers into the areas that what was creating the most crime. We actually were able to keep crime low, and we focused on the right individuals. So Denver historically, prior to that timeline, had arrested 50,000 people per year. It was like clockwork. In 2019, 6,000 fewer, But it was the right people. The felony arrests actually went up, the low-level arrests went down, and crime stayed at low levels. Then, when we talk about the timing of 19143, the 2010-19, the 21271, it changed the whole dynamic. There was this push that nobody, even if you do arrest them, they have to be out of jail within 4 hours. So when the officer tells you that they arrest somebody and that person's back on the street right away, typically they're back on the street before the officer even finishes the paperwork. That is part of the state legislature getting people out of jail in a quick and timely way as well. So there are ways that it's been done in New York City when they increase their officer presence. You're able to prevent the crime from occurring.
Let's talk about increasing officers. So one of the cops we had here to get rid of our friends, he was pulling a double. We called early, and he was here at about 11 o'clock in the morning. He was on duty. He was pulling a double. He was here he was on duty from 7 o'clock the night before. So he was already 16 hours into his shift.
Right.
And he said, yeah, I think one of only 6 guys on duty in District 6.
Yeah.
Unacceptable. Wait, you say yeah. Like this is not uncommon. District 6 is where the crap goes down. This is District 6 is probably the most dangerous area in Denver, I'm assuming.
District 6 is the busiest of the 6 districts.
And there are 6 cops on duty?
Not acceptable. Not okay. Nowhere close to the resource necessary.
How many cops down when you left? How many cops positions were open?
We were at just under 1,400 effective strength. That is nowhere close to having enough officers to address the work issues.
So how many slots open?
Really, the number needs to be about 1,700 officers for a city our size.
You were down like 300 cops.
Correct.
Wow. And who the hell wants to be a cop today?
Exactly. And that's the other part of this issue that needs to get corrected. That's the other part of this issue that needs leadership. So let's talk about why somebody would work for a company, why they would choose a profession. When your employees, they want to be valued, they want to be respected, they want to be treated right. Now, you can do that internally, but what if you have external forces that are demonizing individuals, dehumanizing the individuals that do this work, that are criticizing them for doing things right? For example, cleaning up Union Station, and then it's get questioned, well, why did you arrest so many people? Why did you cite so many people? Why didn't you take folks over to treatment? There was a problem, you asked for the police to take care of the problem's fixed, and now you're criticizing us for fixing the problem. At some point, you have to have individuals that are willing to stand up and say, wait a minute, we need the women and men to do this work. We need future officers to do this work. And too many of the elected officials.
There have been problems with the police department, big problems.
Yes.
There's been bad shooting problems. There's been lots of lawsuits where the city has had to pay out millions of dollars. There have been reasons why certain minority groups feel like they've been singled out by the police. There are reasons why groups don't like the police.
Right.
And I get that. And now you're in a situation where, you're going to get yelled at by those folks. You're going to get sued by these people. The legislature passed a law taking away some of your liability protections.
Qualified immunity.
So now a cop can get sued personally. Nobody wants to be a cop now. What are you, crazy? And now they're more scared about using the strength they need, and they're going to be scared about being recorded about this. They're going to be scared about being sued. No, just go be a waiter. Minimum wage in Denver is going to be $17.30. You're going to do okay.
Right.
All right. Hey, just a couple of last quick questions. One on policy. You're chief of police. I've always thought the way we do choose a chief of police is systematically problematic. You work for one guy, the mayor.
Right.
Mayor chooses you.
Right.
Which means you got to please one guy. When I get pulled over by a deputy who works for a sheriff, that sheriff works for the constituents because he's elected. And I've noticed a real difference, I think, and I'm going to use the term customer service, because that guy is elected. And so all of his employees that work for him, the deputies, understand every time they pull over somebody, they're pulling over a voter who's voting for my boss. I think I better be careful how I do this because he's going to vote for or against my boss. Blah, blah, blah. I've always thought that chiefs of police should be elected, even on a partisan level, the same way we do with sheriffs. I just think that sheriff's offices have a better connection with the people than do police departments. And I was just curious your thought on that, because there always seems to be in cities this tension between the cops and the police, and the chief of police is there and the mayor's there. But really, you work for one guy. It would be different if you worked for every voter.
Right.
What do you think?
Pros and cons to both, and we are in a unique situation in Denver. We're one of only 2 counties in the entire state where even the Denver sheriff is appointed by the
And he just
mayor.
takes care of the jail,
And
basically.
he takes care of the jail and the courts. So pros and cons to both. I have good friends that are the sheriff, the highest elected law enforcement official in their own counties across the country, and police chiefs across the country. And what I'll briefly say is there was a selection process that included community members, multiple boards when I was ultimately appointed. You're right. I worked for one individual and not elected by the people. Customer service is a word that, or 2 words that you used here. And I think that what we have learned, particularly after 2020 in the last couple of years, is folks don't want less police, they want better police. And we do need better customer service. We do need better training in order to help folks. And one of the things that I'm proud that we implemented is the national average for continuing education for a police officer across the country is 21 hours per year. The state of Colorado requires 24. We were at 80 hours to include customer service types of training as well. There is the opportunity to get better, particularly in that realm. There's a leadership academy, a leadership institute that's being stood up with support of community members. And
Or would you like to see them elected?
I see value in both, to be honest with you. I see value in both approaches.
Since that was a wonderfully political answer, rolls right into this and final question. So, since that was a deliciously non-answer, sounds like a real politician. There are rumors you might want to run for mayor.
Well,
There are already like 300 guys running. Why not make it 301? People are hacked off about crime. An anti-crime, law and order guy could really do well. Are you thinking about it?
I'm very much thinking about it. First and foremost, I cannot thank the folks that have reached out, the supporters that I have that continue to encourage me to take that step. But I'm also a realist, and I see what's going on with the politics in our state, the politics in our city. And it's hard to say that folks are ready to make those tough decisions, the tough decisions that are necessary to keep our city safe, and then by proxy, the vibrancy for businesses, the opportunity for kids to go to school. Kids can't learn in an environment that they don't feel safe in. Businesses can't
So
thrive.
in other words, if I'm hearing you right, you're saying Paul Pazen is interested in running for mayor, but the question is, are voters ready for a guy who'd say, we have to get really tough on crime? And the city ready to get tough on crime? Is that what you are weighing?
You know, I think that we make decisions based on our heart, and I love this city. But we also have to make decisions based on our head, using logic, using evidence, using data, research to figure out what the best approaches are. And I make those decisions with using evidence and data to inform how we're going to do things. And considering all of those issues, I think that voters, when they are informed, that they make the right decisions. It's how do we get that message across? And unfortunately, not enough people will watch, this show the way that they should.
Everyone watches the show.
Well,
there are 12 people who watch this show. 11 if you don't count my mother. But still, those are a dozen important people. Hey, Paul, thank you so much. This has been terrific.
John,
so that
thank
wasn't
you.
a yes or no, or are you running? I'm thinking.
We're thinking about it. We'll continue to evaluate the data that is available to make an informed decision.
That was a great cop answer. We are monitoring the situation, and we will keep you informed as it develops.
Well, I don't want to extend this and put you through more pain as well on this. The reality is we should be able to talk frank. We should be able to have those hard conversations. And unfortunately, speaking truth to power just means power whacks you over the head with the hammer, and then you're never seen from again. And
so do the homeless hit you too. You see it on the 16th Street Mall all the time.
There's better ways. There are solutions that are out there. There are cities that are doing this the right way, where people are thriving. A 1.4% unemployment rate. Their citizen satisfaction is through the roof. You drive that town, you will not see the same issues that we see here. Unfortunately,
city cannot thrive if people are scared to go out.
Could not agree more.
So
with
either
you.
become mayor or Batman. Just something to think about. Thanks.
John, thank you.
If you enjoyed that conversation, by all means, click one of these other great programs. We have the best conversations with the most fascinating Coloradans. And subscribe to our channel. Just click down below and hit that little bell button too. You don't want to miss a single show.